What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Playbook Sports Podcast. We're kind of an emergency podcast, right? Got to get this one out because the face of the entire business of the mock draft business, the offseason, outside of, maybe Mel Kiper, I think you can argue, Daniel Jeremiah has just released Mock Draft 2.0. You guys can see my computer screen. I have not even looked this up yet. All I know is that he tweeted out last night that he has 3 running backs in here. So just off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure he's going to have one to the Chargers and one to the Vikings. I don't know where that means Ashton Jeanty goes. I have no idea. Raiders maybe, Bears, Cowboys. There's a bunch of spots it could be. But while you guys are with me right now, we are going to find this mock draft and pull this up here. Daniel Jeremiah mock draft 2.0. Steelers are his third team. Okay, we're just going to look at every single pick that he has made and just give initial thoughts on it. Again, he is the second best guy in the entire business, just slightly behind myself. So a ton of respect for him and what he does. And if you can't tell I'm joking, I can't help you. So pick number 1 for them. Let's just jump right into it. Tennessee going Abdul Carter. I think that is reasonable. Again, when they say they want best player available, that's probably Abdul Carter. I think Abdul Carter being the best player in this entire draft is a very strong take. I have him over Travis Hunter. I have him well over both QBs. He's the most upside player in the entire class. So Abdul Carter at pick 1, I don't hate that. Although if they were doing trades, which it doesn't seem like he's doing trades here. As I've said before, I'm not against projecting trades in my final, but he won't start doing that until the start of round 1 typically. This would be a great trade down spot with a team like the New York Giants who think, you know what, let's jump up, get a QB, and then Titans can hope that one of, which actually it would almost guarantee Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter falls to them at pick 3. So with no trades, I like Abdul Carter to go number 1. And I can see Cleveland goes QB Cam Ward. I like that fit. I think Cam Ward is the most upside QB in this class. I've been really down on Shedeur Sanders, and I want to kind of not walk that back, but just say like he's clearly a first-round grade talent on most NFL's big boards. He's good at what he does. He's going to be good. You just have to have the right system around him. He's not a guy that's going to create a ton with his legs. He holds the ball a little bit too long sometimes, but so does Cam Ward. I think that they're both solid quarterback prospects, but I would only take Cam Ward in the top 10. I wouldn't take Shedeur Sanders in the top 10, but that's just my opinion. But Cam Ward here to Cleveland, I like that pick. I think that's a pretty solid one too. Deshaun Watson has been bad when he's been available, and he's not very available. So pretty easy pick for me. Pick 3, Giants. Okay, surprising. They go Travis Hunter here. I've seen a lot of smoke about Shedeur Sanders here. Maybe they try and trade for someone like Matt Stafford. He's seen a lot of talk about that. But I do think that Hunter is probably second best player in the entire draft class, can do both positions. I prefer him at corner, but I think he's an elite wide receiver too and can be. Now, is he going to play both ways in the NFL? That's to be seen. No one's ever really done that. So who knows? Maybe he could. Pick number 4 here, New England Patriots. Is it offensive line is my best guess? It is. Will Campbell. Higher rated players available on the board, but you've got to upgrade the offensive line. I would say it should be either an offensive lineman or probably Tetairoa McMillan. I'm looking at Tetairoa McMillan at pick 4. This is probably worst case for most Patriots fans because 2 of the best 3 players in the draft are off the board at pick 4. Because the Giants surprisingly don't go with a QB, so now you're like, shoot, we've got to kind of pivot to one of our other options. I would argue Tetairoa McMillan is more important, but Will Campbell, you have 1 starting offensive lineman in New England. Will Campbell gives you 2, so I don't hate that pick for them. Pick 5, Jags go Mason Graham. Yeah, I love this one. A lot of people think the Jags don't need defensive line help. I respectfully disagree with that. You've got Eric Armstead, who's 31 years old and only there for 2 more years. You just drafted Mason Taylor in the second round. Mason Taylor, right? No. The LSU defensive tackle, it's not Mason Taylor because that's the tight end in this year's draft class. The LSU DT last year in the second round, you drafted who has upside, but he's not Mason Graham. Like DJ says here, one of the most consistent players in the class and fills a need for them straight away and gives them a dynamic front four, which we just saw is super important in the NFL. Pick 6, Las Vegas Raiders go with Shedeur Sanders. Yep, absolutely. I think if he's there, he's a good fit in that offense. You've got to get some weapons, though, some guys that can separate because you don't have that right now. And Shedeur's not going to have a lot of time in that pocket to wait for someone to get open. So there's going to be some things that have to be done if you're Vegas. You're going to have to build the right system around him. But I like the pick. I do also not hate the idea of taking someone like Ashton Jeanty here and then getting Jackson Dart, maybe at the end of the first, trade back into it, or even get him early second round. But I don't hate the pick of Shedeur Sanders here at all. Pick 7, Jets go Tyler Warren. I think that is becoming very common. He's just an all-around weapon. We just saw what Brock Bowers did last year. I don't think Tyler Warren's quite as good as him, but Tyler Warren is an unbelievable tight end prospect. He helps them with great blocking. He's a great receiving wide tight end. Can play all over the field, just an absolute mismatch for any linebacker that tries to cover him. He was all Penn State's offense this year, and if you can run an offense through a tight end, that speaks very highly of the tight end. Pick 8, Carolina goes with edge rusher Jalen Walker. I said this in our most recent mock draft. He's one of the most polarizing guys in the entire class. Do you play him at off-ball linebacker? Do you play him at edge? It looks like DJ's got him listed at edge rusher here, and he's got a ton of upside there. I do think that his floor is lower, though. You aren't totally sure what you can get from him as an edge rusher. He looked great against Texas. I mean, dominated Texas. Him and Mykel Williams had their way with the Texas offensive line. But I've seen him play off-ball. I've seen him play great off-ball linebacker. Very good instincts for the position. Unbelievable sideline-to-sideline speed. But if you want to move him to edge and just do a little bit of both, he can drop back. He's kind of a defensive chess piece. And if you're the Carolina Panthers, you probably just need to go best defensive player available or Tetairoa McMillan, who is still on the board here after 8 picks. Wonder how long he lasts for them. Pick 9, New Orleans Saints going Mike Green. I love this fit. He's not quite the typical size you see on the New Orleans Saints defense, but it's a new era out there, and I think that he's the most productive so far without, 17 sacks. You can't beat that. It's unbelievable. It's probably the most of any player coming out of college this year. And he's one of those guys where it's do you want a guy with more upside than Jalen Walker or Mykel Williams in this spot, or do you want a guy that's shown he can do it and also has upside? I love the pick. I think Mike Green is a stud. I think he's deserving to go here to the New Orleans Saints. Pick 10, Chicago Bears go Kelvin Banks Jr., offensive lineman out of Texas. It's a bummer. I love seeing him fall to Miami at pick 13 because I really do think he's going to be awesome in the league and can play any position on the offensive line, probably not center, but at least both tackle spots or guard. So in this instance, my guess is they don't get 2 guards in free agency and they decide to play him at guard and keep Braxton Jones at left tackle. But you could argue Kelvin Banks can stick at tackle. Absolutely. A big fan of Kelvin Banks. He's actually probably OT1. I haven't officially released my rankings on offensive tackles yet. It's really a 3-man race between Campbell, Membu, and Banks. But there's a lot of guys in there. This is a solid offensive line class that's not really being talked about enough. Pick 11 here, I already kind of spoiled it a little bit. It's Will Johnson. I would love for him to fall to Miami at pick 13, obviously as a Dolphins fan. He's the best zone corner by a mile in this draft class. There's some concerns about his man coverage. He's over-aggressive at times and can get burned on some really good double moves. I've seen it countless times in his tape. But I think that his upside is so high. He very clearly resembles someone like a Richard Sherman. Unbelievable zone and can play man and just kind of lock down a side of the field. That's Will Johnson. And I wouldn't mind seeing him go to Vegas at pick 6. I think that'd be a great pick with Pete Carroll and that defense. But also a great pick here for San Francisco on their defense as well. Pick 12, Dallas. Walter Nolan, one of my favorite players in the entire draft class. One of my favorite players. I think his upside is through the roof. And it's like he says, very twitchy disruptor, could replace Oso Digizua if he leaves in free agency. They swung and missed 2 drafts ago on Mazi Smith. He wasn't a great pick. It was a tough pick at the time, and it has not aged well. Walter Nolan can make that right. Walter Nolan, that's an elite football name. That is the strongest name of maybe anyone in the entire draft. I love Walter Nolan's tape. His first step is unbelievable for a guy his size. He's got great power. I think we're sleeping on him. There's no way he should be available after the first 10 picks. I think he's that good of a player. So Walter Nolan at pick 12, and there's 2 of my favorite picks for the Dolphins off the board. I would love if this pick for Miami's Armand Membu. I doubt it will be. DJ's really high on Tyler Booker, so if I had to make a guess, that's where he's going to go with us, and I don't hate that. I don't hate it. It's Tyler Booker. A rock in the middle of the Alabama offensive line. Agreed, he would be a day 1 starter for Miami for the next 5 seasons because we'd obviously pick up his 5th-year option. Tyler Booker's a leader on that Alabama team, an absolute stud. I really think that he's flown up draft boards. And again, this is what Jeremiah's hearing. This is what Daniel Jeremiah's hearing. He's hearing that Tyler Booker's a top 15 pick, where most mock drafts don't have him going into the mid to even late 20s. He's like, this guy's going top 15. We're not talking about it enough. And Tyler Booker's tape is awesome. He is a nasty finisher in the run game. Really solid anchor against pass rushers too. Very, very good offensive line prospect. That's like not a sexy pick, right? But it is a good pick. It's a good pick. Colts, tough draw for the Colts here who are coming up next. I haven't seen who they're picking, but no Tyler Warren available and no Will Johnson available. Could be a corner. We'll see what he says here. Armand Membu. Ooh, okay. plug-and-play starter at right guard. Again, Membu, I think, is one of the best, if not the best, offensive lineman in the class. I would much prefer him for Miami, honestly. I like Membu more. He has higher upside, but a lower floor than Tyler Booker. Tyler Booker's like rock solid already, whereas Armand Membu, you haven't seen him at guard. We're hoping he can play guard well. I'm assuming he can. He's got good length, and he's a tenacious run blocker. Love his run blocking abilities, so I don't hate that pick for the Colts. A little surprising that they go offensive line, but this is a team that likes to have solid trenches, much like Dallas has had, so I don't hate that pick for them at all. I think Membu is a stud, absolute stud. Pick 15, Atlanta. Haha, yes, Daniel Jeremiah. That a boy. This is one of the most common mock picks you will see of any mock draft. It's always Mykel Williams to Atlanta. One of these years, I'm going to be right, and the Falcons will take a pass rusher. Couldn't have said it better. Last year, we were all about, okay, are they taking Dallas Turner at pick 8? Are they going to go with Latu? Who are they going to take at pick number 8? Are they going to go Jared Verse? They probably should have. Said they went Michael Penix, who we'll see. Mykel Williams has a ton of upside. He's a really good run-defending edge rusher as it stands today. Played the whole season with one arm, and he still is really solid. Not great production as a pass rusher yet, but you can say, I think he's going to be a really productive pass rusher, and he's already a great run defender. Just gives Atlanta somebody really solid on the defensive line, and they desperately need that. So I like that pick for them. I think that will continue to be one of my favorite picks to make in all of my mock drafts. Pick 16, Arizona goes with Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle out of Michigan. I agree. I think he's going to continue to fly up the boards, man. He's huge, massive fella, and so he's great against the run, and his pass rush is actually really solid, too, for a player of his size. He's quick. He's got really violent hands. He's got a really good rip move that he utilizes often. He's a problem. He's a problem. Put him next to a guy like Darius Robinson who's there and anybody else that they may add to the defensive line, and if he gets one-on-ones, he's going to win them. He's going to win those. So I agree. The hope is he eventually develops into someone like Dexter Lawrence. He's not a comp for Dexter Lawrence because that is a lofty comp, but he's really good. That's like his ceiling is a Dexter Lawrence, and if you're Arizona, we'll take that. Thank you very much. Pick 17, Cincinnati goes Jahdae Barron. Interesting. Okay. I really like Jahdae Barron. I do think he's pushing for that CB2 spot, depending on what you have Travis Hunter as, a CB1 or 2, or a wide receiver. I think Travis Hunter, CB1, Will Johnson, CB2, but you can argue between, Jahdae Barron, Benjamin Morrison, and even a Siobhan Revell, and I don't think Tramos, so those three guys are really who I'd consider in the next tier of corners. But he was fantastic at Texas this year, played a ton in the slot early, and then played this whole season on the boundary and looked unbelievable. 5 interceptions, no touchdowns allowed, and allowed like a passer rating in the mid to low 30s. That's unheard of. And it's not like he was playing scrubs. He's playing against SEC wide receivers. So he can do it at a high level. Cincinnati does need to work on their defense. So I do not hate this pick at all. And they did just tag T. Higgins too. So you can probably take wide receiver off of the board for them, at least in the first round. Pick 18. Seattle Seahawks going Gray Zabel. This is the highest I've seen him go. I like that. Last year in the first round, they went with Byron Murphy instead of one of the offensive linemen. This year, they do hit offensive line, and Gray Zabel can play all 5 positions, very similar to a guy like Graham Barton, who once he showed that 5-position flexibility, flew up draft boards. Same thing with Gray Zabel. Looked fantastic at the Senior Bowl, as Daniel Jeremiah notes here, and has that 5-position flexibility. It's what you want. You want a guy that can do it all, and he is a guy that can play any position on your offensive line. So I like that pick. I think he's going to continue to move up boards, and if he's good at the combine, you can go ahead and mark him down for top 15. Pick 19, there it is. Okay, Tetairoa McMillan going at pick 19 is crazy. Why so late? And he says it could go earlier in round 1. Tampa Bay would be a great landing spot. He's similar to Mike Evans. He's a Mike Evans type of receiver. Can't play forever. Well, I think he can, and he's shown he probably could play forever, it seems like. But Chris Godwin's probably out the door. Are you going to pay Chris Godwin $20 million a year when you're already paying Mike Evans and you have a chance to bring in a replacement like a Tetairoa McMillan or even a Luther Burden in this spot? If Godwin's gone, why not bring in Luther Burden? I think they would kind of complement each other a little better because Tet and Mike Evans do the same thing. But you also have Jalen McMillan who can play in the slot too. So I think this is just best player available for me. And Tetairoa McMillan's awesome and should not be available here, but he is. Denver on the clock. I kind of saw this one. I love this fit. I love the fit of Colston Loveland here. Sean Payton gets his joker tight end on the offensive side of the ball. Good length, quick, huge playability. Great hands on him, and a way better blocker than he gets credit for. I'll continue to pound the drum and say that. Way better blocker than we think. Colston Loveland at pick 20. I think that's a solid pick. Pittsburgh going with running back Ashton Jeanty. Another guy that just straight up shouldn't be available here. I would have taken him for probably Cincinnati. I mean, there's a number of spots he could have gone. He's awesome. I think he's as good as, if not a better running back prospect than Bijan Robinson was. Now, does that mean he's going to be a better player in the league? No. Being a rated prospect versus what you do in the league is not always the same. You can be a fantastic prospect and not do great in the league. That happens all the time. I don't see that with Ashton Jeanty. His contact balance is second to none. He reminds me a lot of Alvin Kamara, but even better. He's like a mix of Alvin Kamara and Jahmyr Gibbs. And if you can get a Jahmyr Gibbs type of guy here, you do it if you're Pittsburgh. I love the pick for them. Los Angeles Chargers go with Omarion Hampton. He is RB2 for me for sure. I think he is so good. He's got unbelievable speed for his size. He is a thick running back. This is someone that's just going to slam into the defensive line and just cause damage every single rep. Is it a need? Is it something that they want to do? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, obviously, J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards are both free agents, so you need to address the position. And you get a star here. You get a guy that can be an absolute stud. Now, there's plenty of talent. They could have gone elsewhere. They could have gone with a defensive end or an offensive lineman. I wouldn't have hated that for them. But Omarion Hampton is very, very good, and I think once he tests at the combine, he's another guy that's going to start pushing Ashton Jeanty for RB1. Maybe won't pass him, but we'll push him. Pick 23 here. Green Bay goes with offensive tackle Josh Simmons. I like that pick for them. I feel like they should probably go on the defensive side of the ball, though, and get like a Benjamin Morrison. They need a corner so bad. So this may be one where I slightly disagree on. I think Josh Simmons is awesome, and I think he should be, a top 25 pick in this draft. And if he hadn't gotten hurt, probably even higher. But he does, like DJ says, have the tools to play multiple spots on the offensive line, which Green Bay values a ton. I just think they need to address the defensive backfield here. Malachi Starks is still on the board. You've got Benjamin Morrison and Siobhan Revell and Trey Amos all still on the board here. I think Siobhan Revell would be a great pick for them at this spot. But Josh Simmons as a player is fantastic. So, okay. 24, Minnesota goes Travion Henderson. Interesting. Over someone like a Caleb Johnson. Up close look at what a dynamic runner can do for an offense that features a loaded passing attack. Jahmyr Gibbs obviously finds its own weapon with Aaron Jones headed for free agency. I don't hate that. I often mocked them, Omarion Hampton, especially earlier on in the cycle. So I don't hate that. It'll be interesting to see what they do at the quarterback position. Do they bring back Darnold or let JJ kind of take over? If JJ takes over, the best thing you can do for him is give him more weapons around him to distribute the ball to. A good running game helps your passing game, obviously. So I like Travion Henderson. I think I like Quinshon Judkins more than Travion Henderson, though. And Caleb Johnson probably, too. I think those three guys are all in the similar tier. Dylan Sampson probably right there in that tier, too. It's such a deep running back class that I would argue you could wait and get a stud in the second round and get someone better here. But I would have gone probably defense for Brian Flores. Again, another team that could probably use a corner, could use a defensive lineman. So 25 here, Houston goes with Emeka Egbuka. And they say, sorry, CJ Stroud, we are not interested in protecting you. Another team, gotta go offensive line. Their three interior offensive linemen are terrible. And you've got Nico Collins. You're hoping Tank Dell comes back healthy. There's plenty of receivers you can bring in to be a good number 2 or number 3 in free agency. You don't need to take... I love Egbuka. Huge fan of Egbuka. Luther Burden's better, personally. I understand reuniting CJ Stroud with his boy Emeka Egbuka. I get that. But I think Luther Burden's a better prospect, and you've got to protect CJ Stroud. He got sacked 8 times in the playoffs. That's not going to cut it. That's just not going to cut it. So I love Emeka Egbuka. I don't love the landing spot. Rams, Darius Alexander. Wow. In the first round as a defensive tackle. Okay. Over someone like a Shamar Stewart. Okay. Continue to add dynamic players to their young defensive line. Put on a show at the Senior Bowl, starting to generate some first-round buzz in league circles. That one's interesting. That's the first time I've seen Darius Alexander mentioned in the first round. I've always had him pegged as a mid to late second-round guy. Maybe I'm just lower on him than I should be. I don't know about that one. Rams fans, what do you guys think about that pick? Because that's an interesting one for sure. 27, we've got Baltimore Ravens on the clock, and they go with Shamar Stewart. Yeah, I get that. It does feel like a Raven. He's similar, and I keep saying he's similar to Nnamdi Madubuike. Not the biggest interior defensive lineman, but he can beat you with quickness, and sometimes those guards can't handle that. Very, very strong. Great player. I think Shamar Stewart it's a little low. I don't hate this. I'm a guy, let me see it on the field, and he didn't have a ton of production, but he does have a ton of upside. And I could see the Ravens falling in love with that upside and going with Shamar Stewart. Another team that probably could use offensive line, but I see that Daniel Jeremiah, if he was doing 2 rounds, would probably have a ton of offensive linemen go in the second round, so I don't hate that. Detroit goes Donovan Jackson, offensive guard out of Ohio State. I agree. If Kevin Zeitler's gone, Donovan Jackson steps right into the offensive line. You do desperately need a pass rusher, and there's some really good ones available still. James Pierce Jr. is still on the board. Off the top of my, Jack Sawyer is still on the board. Princely Umanmielen, probably a little early for someone like him. But there's plenty of guys on the defensive side that you go with here, and their defense got gashed. I don't know about that one either. I like Donovan Jackson. I think he stepped in and played left tackle admirably for them when Josh Simmons went down. But he was a guard, and I think he's going to be a great guard in the NFL too. But man, over a defensive end, when you were shown last year that your edge room is not deep, would be a priority for me. 29, Washington Commanders go with Jihad Campbell. Love that pick. Yeah, one of my favorite players in the class. Could not agree any more with that. I would not work him out as an edge rusher. That'd be interesting. He can rush the passer, but I think he's an off-ball linebacker. I think he's a really solid middle linebacker, something Washington needs because Bobby Wagner's getting a little bit older. You've got Frankie Louvu in there. Pairing him up with Jihad Campbell is an excellent 1-2 middle linebacker group, so I like that pick. Buffalo Bills going with Texas wide receiver Matthew Golden. Just a player I'm not high on, personally. I'm not very high on Matthew Golden. Again, I just feel like one day when he declared, someone's like, first rounder, and everyone's like, yes. Agreed. First rounder. I don't see it. Personally, I don't see it. 31, Kansas City Chiefs go with Josh Connerly Jr. That's an unbelievable pick. That's a fantastic pick. You desperately need a left tackle. Josh Connerly is a pro-ready left tackle. He'll slide right on in and start for them day one and fix that need. You can put Joe Thuney back to his position of left guard where he can help a young Josh Connerly on the left side of the offensive line to go alongside with Creed Humphrey. Yeah, elite pick for them. Don't have a whole lot else to say about that. And then finally, the Philadelphia Eagles. This should be a Georgia defender. I don't know which one or who, but that's what they do. They take Georgia defenders or an offensive lineman, someone to replace eventually Lane Johnson. Let's see what they do. Malachi Starks. Georgia defender. I swear I did not look at this before. That's what they do. Versatile piece to the secondary in Starks, who joins the Georgia North All-Stars in Philadelphia. I agree with the take, and Malachi Starks being available on the board here is unbelievable value for them. But do they really need a safety? I mean, C.J. Gardner-Johnson's a little bit older. I don't know how old Reed Blankenship is, but I would probably look edge rusher in this spot. I know Donovan Izuraku would be available and be an interesting pick for them. And they also could address a tackle and get a tackle because you're going to need one for Lane Johnson eventually. You're set at guard with Alexander Steen, and then you've got Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens in the middle and Jordan Mailata. Like, your offensive line's set for next year, but this is a team that drafts for 2 years in the future. So I could see them going offensive line. But Malachi Starks, that's great value. And he's a Georgia defender. I did not look at this before I said that. So that's funny that he did go with a Georgia defender. So that is Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft 2.0. I'm sure we'll get another one after the combine, if I had to guess. So that should be in the next couple of weeks here. Not a ton of gripes with it. I don't know about, where's Luther Burden, man? Luther Burden isn't even taken in the first round? That is crazy to me. Behind someone like Matthew Golden, I disagree. I mean, I didn't miss Luther Burden, did I? I didn't miss James Pierce Jr., did I? Who the Bills could desperately use a defensive edge. James Pierce Jr. should not be a second-round pick. And if he is, I would be giving up everything to get him in the second round. Very interesting. I don't know. I feel like there's talent at more premium positions that weren't picked. It is a really solid draft, like talent-wise, from picks 20 to 60. You're going to get guys that could be first-round talents in those picks. So I get it. It's hard to find a spot for everybody, and there's always going to be players that you're like, how is this guy not in the first round? It's like, well, because I've got 40 guys that could be first-rounders. So I understand that is a bit of a struggle. So no Benjamin Morrison in the first round. No Siobhan Revell in the first round. Interesting. It'll be fun to see how this plays out. But that is Mock Draft 2.0 from Daniel Jeremiah. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about these picks, if you're happy who your team took, if you're not happy who your team took, and who you would have rather them taken in their place. And make sure you guys, if you're not already subscribed, subscribe to the channel. There will be plenty more mock drafts, plenty more draft content and off-season content coming your guys' way shortly. We'll see you all in the next one.